Hello class, my name is Addison Nadwani and today I will be presenting about art during early modern history, which as you guys know is from 1450 to 1700. So before we dive into this presentation, I just want to give you a brief introduction to each of the periods I will focus on, which are the Ming Dynasty and the Renaissance. So to start out with, we have the Ming Dynasty, which lasted from 1368 to 1644. It is known for being a period of great territorial expansion, flourishing trade, centralized government, as well as thriving literature, art, and economics. Admiral Zheng He played a key role in establishing successful trade routes between China and other Western regions, including Japan and parts of Europe, making the Ming Dynasty the first to ever officially do so. There are many goods that were traded, however, one that will be brought up later again in this presentation is the blue and white porcelain, which was an important art form during this dynasty. This period is also marked by the arrival of Jesuit missionaries, which led to significant cultural exchange, with China gaining European knowledge and technologies while adapting Christian faith to its culture and customs. The Renaissance, on the other hand, spanned all the way from the 14th century to the 17th century and is usually categorized into two groups, the Italian Renaissance and the Northern Renaissance. This was a period of intellectual and cultural rebirth sparked by ancient Greek and Roman antiquity, with ideas of humanism and realism becoming main focuses. Art and literature were revolutionized during this period, with artists, writers, and philosophers looking into the past for inspiration while shifting their focus from religion to human potential. So, first of all, where did I begin my research process? When I originally started out with this research project in the beginning of this semester, I chose art and literature throughout all of early modern history as my research topic. So I actually really struggled narrowing down my topic from literature and art as a broad category to what I have now, which focuses specifically on visual art in the Ming Dynasty and the Renaissance period. And for those of you who don't know what visual art means, it's a pretty broad category of art that you can see. So for example, that would include paintings, sculptures, and architecture, and it would not include things like music or literature. So anyways, I wanted to originally include literature because I felt like there were so many subcategories I could talk about. For example, if I wanted to use cause and effect, I could explain how the printing press contributed to the spread of literacy, which in turn led to important intellectual and religious movements. Or I could compare the types of literature that were beginning to emerge, such as the Chinese novel in China, to the sonnet, which emerged in Italy and then got modified and popularized in England. However, I realized that my topic was way too broad, and if I wanted to do an efficient job at explaining my points, I would have to narrow it down to one category, so like literature or art, and only a few periods or civilizations. The reason I chose to do art instead of literature is because I believe that art has played a unique role in shaping civilizations and making us humans as we are today. Throughout time, art has been a vessel for individuals to express themselves, reinterpret the world around them, and communicate religious beliefs. For instance, The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci, which was painted from 1495 to 1498, became a revolutionary religious painting that emphasizes the portrayal of emotions, and is shown on the left, or more recently, Pablo Picasso's Guernica, which is a 1937 oil painting that conveyed the tragedies of war and caused many to take a stand against violence. Although these are just a few examples, it is clear that art has been used as a powerful tool to convey ideas and create change within the world around us to this very day. However, if we focus specifically on early modern history, there have been two time periods where art has played an especially important role: the Renaissance period in Europe and the Ming Dynasty in China. So from this, a research question begins to arise. What are the similarities and differences between Renaissance and Ming art throughout early modern history? From there, I had a little trouble deciding on a thesis statement. I understood that a thesis is a sentence located at the end of the first paragraph that tells the reader exactly what is going to be in the paper while making a claim. I just wasn't sure how to include it in my paper. So my original thesis was, while both Renaissance Europe and Ming Dynasty China used art to express religion and traditional values, Renaissance artists emphasized the human body and humanist ideals through painting, sculpture, and architecture, while Ming artists focused on harmony with nature, expressed through ink painting, porcelain, and calligraphy. However, after some refinement, my new thesis statement is both Renaissance Europe and Ming Dynasty China use various mediums of art to express religious and traditional values. Okay, so now I'm going to summarize some of the main similarities and differences I found while conducting my research. So, first of all, as I mentioned earlier, Renaissance art utilized art forms such as painting, sculpture, and architecture, while Ming artists used ink painting, porcelain, and calligraphy. Renaissance art also emphasized the human body and humanist ideals, while Ming artists focused on harmony with nature. With this in mind, although both Renaissance art and Ming art may depict humans in their art, Ming art has less focus on humans as a central subject, instead focusing on the natural world such as landscape and adding humans as an insignificant figure that exists in unity with nature, which ties into Confucian and Taoist philosophy. For those of you who don't know, Taoism is the belief that humans do not control nature and instead are small parts that should live in harmony with it, and also goes by the name of Taoism. So if you see Taoism, they're also talking about Taoism. Anyways, this philosophy is depicted by many Ming artists, including Tang Yin, whose paintings clearly express the principles of Taoism. Additionally, both Renaissance and Ming artists drew inspiration from classical influence, with Renaissance artists taking inspiration from Greek Roman antiquity, while Ming artists drew from Confucian and Taoist philosophy, as well as preceding dynasties such as the Tang, Han, Song, and Yuan. In Renaissance art, this is depicted through the emphasis of realism and accurate human anatomy, the use of sculpture, especially with hewn marble, and the creation of grand architecture. On the other hand, Ming art reflects these classical influences through the use of elegant calligraphy and paintings and fine white and blue porcelain, which was a prominent art form during the Yuan dynasty, which, if you guys don't know, it was the dynasty right before. When conducting research, I first went to the FSW A through Z database and went into EBSCO Academic Search because I used that in my composition class last semester, and in that database, I am able to refine my search to only full-length peer-reviewed journals and articles. So this ensures that they are scholarly and reliable. However, through this, I realized that most of the articles here are about very specific things, such as the process of how artists created fresco paintings during the 15th century. Instead, I needed background information about my topic and a broad overview of it, which I can then go and divulge into more specific topics. So after watching the videos in the materials section of this course, I started with looking up broad topics in pseudo reference, which in credo reference such as the Ming Dynasty or the Renaissance. From there, I gathered enough information and got a good understanding of what I needed to research further, such as humanism or Taoism, which both impacted art significantly. After this, I moved on to Modern World History Database, and this is where I could find even more background information. I think if I were to do this project over again, I would start with the Modern World History Database because it had even more general information than Credo Reference, and then move on to Credo Reference after for more details about the topic. When conducting my research, I wanted to verify that the information I collected was correct, so I would look at various sources to see if they all align. I also wanted to make sure that my sources were credible, so I made sure all of my sources were either from academic journals and encyclopedias or from a primary source. Overall, I am very pleased with my research process. Honestly, I was very intimidated when I first started because I had such a broad topic and did not know where to begin. However, through refinement of my research topic, I was able to find a place to start. I am also happy because I have never done a research project like this where everything was up to me. My topics, my sources, my direction. So I am happy that I was able to have an opportunity to do something like that. Alright, so that's it for my presentation about Ming Dynasty and Renaissance art. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I'm really looking forward to see all of your guys' presentations. If you guys have any questions about what I presented, just let me know. Thank you again.